I have returned, and together we will craft you into the tool of my vengeance.
Hi, this is Glenn and welcome to SwitchUp. Many thanks to the developers for the review copy of today's game, which is Hand of Fate 2. This is a follow-up to the original Hand of Fate that released back in 2015 and is set 100 years after the first game. It's a dungeon crawler with both action-adventure and card deck building elements. But will Fate smile kindly on the Switch's latest release, or will it show just what a cruel mistress it can be? Let's find out. Hand of Fate 2 is split into 22 campaigns. At the start of a campaign, the dealer will begin to tell his tale, taking you on a journey as your avatar moves along the trail of cards on the table. Each card will present a scenario. Some are situational, such as encountering a blizzard and needing to pass through it. At points like this you will be dealt 4 cards. There are success and failure cards, and how many of the 4 are success or failure is randomized. The cards are shuffled and you must pick one to decide your fate. In the earlier given example, a success card will see you pass through the storm fairly unharmed, whereas a failure card may see you lose some of your health, which is situated in the bottom left hand corner of the screen. One issue with the randomized nature of these events is how unfair it can feel when you receive a large proportion of the failure cards. The blizzard events in particular are very brutal, robbing you of huge amounts of health, and getting a couple of these in a row could lead to a premature death unless you strike lucky with the cards, such as here. Other cards will see an event happen, such as an arm wrestling match in a tavern. This time you must roll 3 dice and reach a set number in order to succeed. Again, these dice rolls can seem stacked against you at times, although you can re-roll any number of the 3 dice once should you fail to reach the required number. Finally, you have cards that will lead to combat, and at this point the game shifts to a third-person action perspective and you must defeat all on-screen enemies. At this point the game plays in a hack and slash style, with you getting a few attacks in before having to defend yourself or evade from an attack before attacking again yourself, rinse and repeat. The combat, whilst very simple, plays well enough, and it feels satisfying to take down a group of enemies with a weapon card that you have just earned. As the number of enemies on the screen increases, you find yourself becoming a little overwhelmed, and although the moveset is fairly robust, combat isn't as fluid as something like, say, the Batman Arkham games. As mentioned earlier, you have a health bar at the bottom of the screen, and any damage you take, be it through scenarios on the cards or via combat, will show here. Your food and gold quantities are also displayed here, as well as your fame rating later in the game. 1 piece of food is consumed for every step forward your avatar takes on the table, so it's important you have enough. Food can be gained through the card scenarios or even bought in shops should you land on a shop card. You can use your gold to do this, and again, gold can be earned through scenarios in the cards, such as winning the aforementioned arm wrestling contest for example. You can view your inventory screen and change the weapons or armour that you have equipped should you have acquired more as you go along. You can also equip any ability cards that you may have picked up on your journey. These may allow you to have some of your health restored, possibly if it drops below a certain point in battle, or things such as cards that allow you to gain 2 equipment cards should you roll the exact number needed during a dice section. Successful completion of a campaign will net you more cards to add to your deck, and the next campaign will then be unlocked. Should you have earned any tokens during your playthrough, which are achieved by completing certain additional objectives, then you will also earn yourself some bonus cards on completion of the whole campaign. At the start of every new campaign, you can choose from the cards that you have amassed so far and add these to the dealer's deck. You choose a companion who will assist you in the battle sections, the encounters that you may experience along the campaign, as well as some weapons. These will then shape your story. What this means is that you have a small element of control over the campaign. Pick encounters from your hand that you know will earn you gold or food or include a shop card, and these may then make it onto the table when the dealer lays the cards out. Hopefully this will aid you in progressing through the game. Cards will start to repeat as you play more of the game, and sometimes even during the same campaign, and this is a shame, but to be fair, there is still a lot to see here. The gameplay is extremely enjoyable, with the main gripe being how a cruel run of luck can ruin what may have been a very positive campaign run up until that point, and lead you having to start again. This does not happen all the time, and it's really nice to see two unique game styles blended together in the way that this game achieves. Gameplay receives 17 out of 20. The graphics in Hand of Fate 2 are decent, although some of the character models do look quite dated at times. I really like the overall aesthetic of the dealer segments. Sitting across the wooden table, the glow of the flickering candle as the lamp sways in the breeze, giving just enough light for you to see your host, his eyes fixated upon you as the rest of him is shrouded in darkness and mystery. Around the room you will find an assortment of cards, charms, dice and boards, and it all seems to contribute to an eerie yet curious atmosphere. In fact, playing this game on the big screen with all the lights out reminded me of the Atmosphere board games that came with a VHS tape back in the 90s. The third-person action sequences do not hold up quite as well and certainly have a last generation feel to them. Robbed of the atmosphere of the dealer segments, the limitations in the graphics are more clear to see. That being said, there are a few different locations on show, and you do find yourself battling in forests, icy mountain tops and castle courtyards among others. Overall, the graphics do a good job of setting the scene and they receive 16 out of 20. The music does a great job of adding to the atmosphere, but not necessarily in the way that you'd expect. During the dealer scenes, I was anticipating a quite macabre and downbeat score, very eerie and creepy, but instead it's quite serene for the most part. At times it's made up of angelic female voices. Now, whereas this should seem very out of place, they act almost as sirens, luring you into what seems like a false sense of security. The music changes with the turn of a card, and it all makes for a wonderfully atmospheric package. During the action scenes, the music is a bit more formulaic and sounds like something you would hear during a fight scene in a Game of Thrones, for example. All of the creatures you fight make the appropriate grunts and battle cries, but as with the graphics, the game just loses a little of its charm during these scenes compared to the dealer segments. Again though, having said that, the music still does a stellar job of complementing the gameplay, and it scores 17 out of 20. The controls are very intuitive, both in the dealer sections and the action sections. Movement of your avatar is controlled with the left stick, with A being your contextual button, and the minus button accessing your inventory. During battle, Y is your standard attack, with X allowing you to defend yourself. A is a bash move that knocks your opponent off guard temporarily, and B is your evasive roll. ZL performs a finishing move when you are prompted, and ZR unleashes your weapon's special attack. The L button allows your companion to use their special power, and also allows you to revive them should they fall in battle. The right stick moves the camera during these sections, but it is fairly static in all honesty, and doesn't move enough to be overly helpful most of the time. You may get a little flustered in battle to begin with, remembering to defend when an enemy flashes green and evade when they flash red, but you soon get the hang of it, and controls receive 16 out of 20. Hand of Fate 2 costs £22.60 or $29.99. It also has 10% off in the EU eShop until the 24th of July, which brings the price down to £20.34 for a short while. The 22 campaigns will take approximately 15 hours or so to complete, and the fact that your choice of cards changes the campaign slightly also adds some replayability. There is also an endless mode that you can try, as well as the regular campaign mode. The game has a high quality feel to it, and this softens the blow of the higher price point. It's a very unique game, with the only other deck building card game currently on the Switch being the recently released Frost, although that did not include action or RPG elements such as this. Value scores 16 out of 20. To conclude, Hand of Fate 2 is a very welcomed addition to the Nintendo Switch's growing list of high quality games. It's also a release that further increases the number of available genres in the Switch's library. As already mentioned, the only other deck building game available at the minute on the Switch is Frost. Check out our review for that too, by the way. So Hand of Fate 2 does have a fairly free run at this particular market at the moment, but it has set the bar very high for any similar games that want to follow it. The mix of deck building, third-person action segment with a sprinkling of RPG elements is a very unique one and makes for a fascinating game that is worthy of the time of anyone that has a passing interest in any of the genres that this game features. Hand of Fate 2 receives a SwitchUp score of 82%. Thank you everybody for watching. As always, we really do appreciate your support. If you like what you've just seen, leave a like for us if you don't mind, and if you have not already subscribed, consider doing so for all things Switch all the time. And as always, happy gaming.